This is a bridge that's known as the Whiskey Bridge, and it's a bridge over the Brazos River in Brazos County, Texas. And this bridge is actually a railroad bridge that's operated by the Union Pacific. And right next to it is the State Route 21 bridge, so a road bridge. We can actually hear a train in the background, so I might get a train going over this. This is still an active railroad track. But below us is the Brazos River, and now this is downstream of the Brazos River. And one thing that is interesting is if you see those banks on the other side of the river, I believe there's some interesting fossil beds located in those banks, so I might take a look at that later. So yes, there is actually going to be a train going over this bridge. So now I'm looking down the track with the river to the back of me. You can actually see that the bridge is attached to this trestle here that's supported by these wooden pylons. And this bridge was actually constructed in the 1910s, so I believe it was 1912. And I kind of wonder if these wooden poles were the original wooden poles back then. I can't imagine they are, because they would have rotted out. So these must have been replaced over and over again since then. But yeah, it is amazing that these wooden poles are able to hold that massive train up. So looking at this bridge from below, from the riverbank, you can see the Brazos River. It's actually not very high today. And you can see the truss work of the bridge. And there's the highway bridge to the left. And here's a look at the trestle at the east end of the bridge, so the Brazos end of the bridge. And back there would have been the beginning of the wooden pylons. Here's a closer look at the wooden piles that are holding this trestle up. So you can see the many rows of wooden poles that are used to hold this up. And there's the highway in the background. This bridge was constructed in the 1910s, so I can't imagine these are original poles because they would have rotted through, so they had to have been replacing poles regularly, which is surprising that they haven't actually taken the wooden supports out and replaced them with either steel or concrete. So here's another look at the piles that hold this trestle at the end of the bridge up. So I'm on the Brazos side of the bridge, which is the eastern side of the bridge. And you can see how there's these row upon row of poles that would hold this part of the bridge up. And it's actually kind of surprising that these poles are able to hold up that massive train that we saw earlier. This bridge was originally constructed in 1912, so it's also kind of surprising that they haven't since then replaced these poles with some type of steel or concrete supports. I mean, I can't imagine these were the original poles though, because the wood would have rotted through and had to have been replaced multiple times since then. But I'm still kind of surprised that they kept these wooden supports rather than replacing them with steel or concrete. And just to look down the other end, you can see how far this row goes. You can also see some railroad ties that were, some pieces of railroad ties that were discarded on the side of the bridge. Not really sure why they just dumped them here. Maybe they were pieces that were too long and they had to cut the ends off or something like that, and then they just dropped them by accident and no one ever came to pick them back up. But yeah, you can see the lattice work of wooden supports that is holding this trestle up. So now I'm on the other side, so this would be the Burleson County side or the western side of the river. And you can see some old telegraph poles over there. Not sure how long that's been lying unused, but imagine it went out of use in the 50s or 60s when everything was converted over to using radio. There's the Route 21 bridge. I'm now on the western side of the river. So this bridge was actually constructed in the 1910s. I believe it was constructed in 1912. And there actually would have been a matching truss bridge that carried a road over this river here as well. That bridge was actually demolished and replaced with the highway bridge. But the reason this bridge is actually called Whiskey Bridge is because the county across the river, so Brazos County, was a dry county, and the county I'm standing in, Brazos or Burleson County, was not a dry county, so they allowed the sale of alcohol here. So people would actually come to this bridge and cross over in order to legally buy alcohol and then bring it back into Brazos County. And I believe the road bridge was actually what was originally called Whiskey Bridge, but then the name got transferred over to this truss bridge as well. Or yeah, to the railroad bridge as well. So now this is actually in many places known as Union Pacific's Whiskey Bridge. So this is a look upstream, so to the north, and you can see this bend in the river, and you can see how this bend in the river has actually eroded away some of the dirt on this side of the river. The river actually isn't flowing too high today. This is the middle of winter, so I imagine during the spring and early summer this river would have quite a bit more water in it. Actually, you can barely see any flow as well. The river's completely stagnant under the bridge. And you can see some moss or some foam accumulating on the top of the water. Now, talking about the geology of this place, So the rocks that we're looking at here were actually deposited 40 million years ago, so during the Eocene, and this region was actually part of was underwater at that time, so it was part of a sea, and all these would have been sedimentary rocks that have deposited. So you can see up there, there's those different layers of rocks that are formed by layers of silt depositing at the bottom of some type of sea. And this place is actually one of Texas's most renowned areas for seeing fossils. So there's lots of fossils of mollusks and other sea life. And if you actually look at this rock over here, you can see those white, the white parts of those rocks are actually crushed pieces of shell that would have been deposited. And you can actually see the rock itself is comprised of basically large rocks that have been cemented together. So this is how sedimentary rocks form. I believe that most of the rocks here are limestone, and there's actually some mudstone as well. So the limestone layers formed at the top, and then there's mudstones below that.